Okay. So let's do this. For the sake of time, I want to give everyone their full amount of time. But what we'll do is we will move over to Philip, who's supposed to be next for us. And just, let me give a quick commentary on what's happening. This is, I'm from the US, so I spent most of my life in the US. And I'm so used to things happening like when I want them, light comes on, water comes on, that kind of stuff. And when I moved here, there are different infrastructural challenges that make it very difficult for people from other parts of the world to participate in events like this. Brilliant minds, people who are truly gifted, people that have so much to teach the larger body of Christ or the world in general. But because of issues like internet connectivity, internet speed, we don't get a chance to hear from them unless we go to their country or they come to the US and we get a chance to spend time with them one-on-one. And so make that a point of prayer. If you're the type of person that has the brains to come up with a solution for that, welcome. We would love for that to happen. I think many times the issue is not that one part of the world is more intelligent than the other. The issue comes down a lot of times to access. And so perhaps this is a personal challenge to someone who's listening to this call. Help us with this internet stuff. We would love for you to come over. Start here in Ethiopia, okay? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and transition over to Philip Yan. Philip lives in Toronto, Canada, and I just got to know him over a little over a week ago. Our short conversation had me thinking, after this Passion Talks is over, I really want to talk some more with this guy. He's very fascinating. So Philip, since you're a part of this Lausanne YLGen hosted session, would you first of all just tell us how you've been involved with the Lausanne movement over the past?
Hello, everyone. It was a pleasure to me to come to know Lausanne movement. Since 2019, I have a chance to go to Philippines to join the Global Workplace Forum at the time, and also met many people in the pre-conference on the media and technology consultations. So with that, I actually come to know how that movement is actually making so much move to advance the gospel. So when I come back, eventually I make a lot of friendships. I now part of the board of the Lausanne Movement Canada. So it was a great pleasure to join this movement.
Thanks, Philip. And what he's referring to is the 2019 gathering in Manila, Philippines, that brought together not just those who are stereotypically considered ministers and missionaries and such, but also the larger part of the body of Christ that has been oftentimes left out of the conversation. We've typically treated business people as though they are just the cash cows of our missions efforts, and therefore the only involvement we want is their financial involvement. And so Lausanne convened this event to hear from these brilliant minds and to say, hey, what you're doing actually brings God glory, and it's ministry in and of itself. And so Philip, thanks for being with us today. I think we have Gloria back with us, but I'm going to let you go ahead and start your presentation, and then we'll switch back over to Gloria. But I'm eager to hear what you have to share with us, and so over to you.
Okay.
I'm going to turn my video off as well.
Okay. So this is actually how we've been seeing each other in the last year. This is mass, and this is the reusable mask, and that we also have masks like this is disposable mask, and we also have a third kind of mask, which is like this, which is the N95, a mask that can actually filter 95% of the virus, and in a very micro situations. I want to tell you a little bit about the story of mass with me in the last year. So let me just kind of further introduce myself a little bit. I am Philip Yan. I'm from Toronto, Canada. I am, as I mentioned, that I'm part of the Lausanne board in Canada, as well as the Global Workplace Ministry board. I am a designer. I also have a new job 2 months ago, starting as a director for Center for Redemptive Entrepreneurship in Tyndale University in Toronto. The story started in March last year. You know, this is a time that WHO just declared the pandemic with the COVID-19. Frankly, at the time that nobody really prepared to really just to see what's going to happen with the pandemic. And we were not prepared. Not only we, like the whole North America not prepared. We're not prepared at the time. One day there was an invitation from a friend of mine that she said, Philip, you got to join us for a conversation tonight. So we started to have a Zoom call with a group of people. Now, let me just give you a little background about my friend who invited me to the conference, to the Zoom call. We both have shared the same experience of being a social entrepreneur, running different projects in Toronto and the broader context. So we came together, and I find that I was not only talking to the friend that she talked about as a doctor in the hospital, but also with a group of Christian friends that had very different background. So we were just talking about and lamenting one thing is how unprepared we were. At the time, hospital was locked down, the city was locked down, and hospital under the lockdown situations is really not prepared because there was not even enough PPEs and also the masks. And in fact, it is more than that because the policy is not really prepared. In fact, one of the friends that she worked for hospital, she wear masks in the hospital and being called to the supervisor's room and saying that you shouldn't wear masks to create the public fear. You know, the frontline worker in the hospital, they were working in the hotspots at the time with a lot of fear themselves, and they need protections. The problem is the policy as well as the preparations were not enough. So they were in great dangers. And my friend who worked for the hospital, not only thinking about herself, but also thinking about other people and how we're going to manage and mitigate this major crisis that we're not prepared. So one thing in common about this group is we're all Asians. So because of our family background, we've been watching news from the COVID-19 that spread from China to Asia to Europe, and then gradually came to North America. And we saw that for months, and a lot of Asian family already prepared because they recognized that very similar experience with the SARS in 2003. So a lot of people already stock up with masks, but because of lack of knowledge, they buy masks whatever that they can. So whether it's a general mask or mask that is really just used by the hospital, like N95 or the ASTM level 3 masks. Some of these masks are not quite necessary for them, but they stockpile them. Now, we were looking at that, and we're looking at how unprepared of the hospital that we said that night, we got to do something together. So a group of friends that never have any experience working together, and we have very different kind of skill set. We just kind of, based on the lament that we have, we pray together and say, what should we do? We can do something. And what we did end up after the prayer, we decided that we're going to ask for the massive donations from the society, that including a lot of Asian family, to donate the masks that they don't need. And then we will sort it, we will put it together, and redistribute to the hospitals. Well, I mean, it is not an easy job. So we quickly turn ourselves into a crisis mode, that we work together, and in 3 days, we put together a web app that we're able to promote. And because part of my background as a designer, to design the app, so I worked like all nights to do that together with other friends. So So we make that app able to not only communicate, but also allow people to make donations on the finance and also to donate their own mask. They take picture to validate the content, and they show the geolocation so that we can drive there and pick it up and put it to the warehouse and we distribute. A group of friends that actually able to work with a nonprofit to find all the support that the place can actually help us to use their the van to pick up the materials and the warehouse for us to sort it, and also receiving donation for us. And at the time, because we don't know how long they're going to be, they can only commit for 3 weeks. So we start to drive that, and the donations start coming in, and people responding. And we were surprised at how much mask that we start getting and how generous the people are. The problem with that is the challenges. Like after 3 weeks, you know, that situation never go away, and it's getting even more. And our partner can only afford to support us for 3 weeks. So in the last few days, we don't know what to do. So we prayed again, and then we asked around. That finally, one community center opened up and willing to give us, let us use their warehouse. And in fact, they have volunteers like nurses that can help us to, we train them how to sort out all the masks, and so that we can qualify all the masks, and then we distribute and do inventory. And connecting to CAA. Now, CAA is the equivalent of AAA in America. They have a fleet of cars, trucks everywhere, and they willing to help us to pick up and distribute the masks. And Lausanne Movement Canada also generous enough to help us to take donations so that we can, through Lausanne, so that we can actually receive donations and buy masks in the same time. With all of these, we were just amazed at how God is moving in such a crisis that bring people together. That gave me a thought of, you know, the Bible's biblical story that we heard from Old Testament about Nehemiah, that there's some similar trait that I felt that we were doing it in parallel. It was Nehemiah who heard from other people about the terrible situation in Jerusalem, and with the lament, he prayed and asked God, what should we do? Then he felt the call that God called him to do something that he never done before, to do something that is not really what he trained to do, with the backing of his king, with a lot of support, even military support, to send him to Jerusalem to rebuild the wall. There were challenges for them, but God actually helped him to solve it with everybody together. With one way is they focus on what they do. Our team felt the same way. We gone through the same process, and there were challenges, and we trying to find a way to deal with it without any prior experience. And in fact, we all have our full-time jobs, whether we are doctor, we are administrators, or we are designers, and so on. So we all have our own jobs, but we find way to look at that and see that as part of our calling to do it. But we recognize that this is actually not about us. It is part of God's redemptive plan, that our job is to be part of that plan and deal with this crisis. So when the public policy, the supply chain, and all these protective gear with the PPEs are normalized, and they starting to be able to create more supplies and so on, we decided it's about time for us to close the project. So as we count that experience together, in 15 weeks, starting in mid-March, together, we donated more than 500,000 PPE and masks to our province, to 137 hospital and senior homes, by truck, by private cars, and by airplane to the remote area. Through connections, we even have volunteered that using the private plane to really help us to send those masks to the different hospitals. Many hospitals send us the gratitude and saying that how important that was to help them to keep the frontline workers safe. Most importantly, that donations was at the middle of the most desperate crisis at a time in transitions that we were able to be part of that journey. Looking back, just like what we learned from the Old Testament with the story of Nehemiah, what do we learn from this? You want to hear it? This is what we learn. There are always hope in the midst of devastations, because God always show up in the time like this, in the middle of our pain. We need to change our perspective so that we can see it. But that is one thing, just like Nehemiah's stories, that we start with lament, prayer, willingness to face that challenge. The thing that we learned the most is there was not either devastations or hope. It was not either lament or action, but it is all of them. It is the devastations, lament, action, and hope that weave together as the fabric of human experience. And with that experience, that we can see the hope of God. They bring and help us to recognize His presence in our midst. I hope that you find hope in your journey. And I hope that you find that you have a chance to share your talent, your gift, and to make a change in this world. That's my story.
Thank you so much, Philip. I appreciate how you were available. So many people will make the quick excuses. I don't have gifts in this, or I don't know that person, or I don't have the resources. But I love how you just took initiative and made it happen. I wonder if you all may have any questions for Philip about his experience in this process, or anything else related to the work that he's done. I'm not seeing any right now. Angela, do you have any questions for Philip? Put you on the spot there.
Yeah. What were some of the emotions in the emotional journey from the very beginning of that first meeting with the group of people, all the way through the logistics, all the challenges, and then deciding to close it down? What feelings did you face, and what was that like?
That's a very good question, Angelo. At the first meeting, it was the doctor who really felt the needs, that she's together with the frontline worker every single day. And I remember the prayer that we prayed together, that she was actually so moved to cry. She actually said that it is not about me for my safety. It is about everyone that I'm concerned about. And I think that actually really helped us and move us. And that emotional was really the trigger point. But as we go, there was frustrations of things are not moving as good as we wish sometimes. And there were challenges along the way. There were stumbling blocks. And one interesting thing is we've been having regular prayer meeting that we're praying for all of these, and how people supporting each other, how people willing to generously give their own time and care. I was in the middle of a crisis of my own, because my dad just diagnosed cancer at the same period of time. And I'm preparing so many things, in the same time. There was one sister among the group that she said, I just cannot do what you guys do. I cannot go out and do all these things, but my gift is prayer. So she called everyone, and she called me and said, how can I pray for you? So she compiled all the prayer lists and keep praying for everyone. It is a spiritual battle. And we need people like her to really praying for us too, for this journey. I'm just so glad that everyone find their own gifts and how they can use the gifts to support the cause. And that's actually the mobilizations of collaborations that God wants us to do.
Yeah, thanks, Philip. I love that emphasis on team as well, because we live in a world where people want to take the individual credit. And you could have easily came on and said, hey, I made this happen and I'm the hero and the celebrity of this story. But you've been quick to highlight that it was a team effort. And I love that about you. And also love the fact that, when we look at these stories on the news, we see the big headlines, but we're unaware of just the individual sacrifice and effort that people like you have made over the course of this pandemic. And so we applaud you and we appreciate you. And thanks so much for sharing with us today.
Thank you.